In 1968, California's rural roads were defined by isolation. If you drove just a few miles out of the city limits, the streetlights faded into long, unlit stretches of gravel. For local teenagers, these patches of darkness, places like Lake Herman Road in Benicia, were standard spots to park a car away from prying eyes. On the night of December 20th, David Faraday and Betty Lou Jensen were parked in a gravel turnout when an unknown assailant ambushed them. Faraday was shot in the head at point-blank range, and Jensen was gunned down as she tried to flee across the gravel path. 7 months passed before the violence returned. Over the 4th of July weekend, the pattern repeated at Blue Rock Springs Park. Darlene Farron and Michael Majow were sitting in their car when a man with a high-powered flashlight approached their window and fired a 9mm pistol into the cabin. These attacks targeted the basic freedom of the American teenage weekend. By striking at random in these recreation areas, an untraceable predator turned quiet rural roads into scenes of unprovoked execution. Exactly 40 minutes after the shooting at Blue Rock Springs, the Vallejo Police Department received a phone call. It was placed from a payphone located only 2 blocks away from their own headquarters. The man on the other end gave the exact location of the victims and claimed responsibility for the murders. Then he added a chilling postscript: "I also killed those kids last year. Goodbye." This phone call changed the nature of the investigation. The killer was actively communicating with the police to ensure they knew exactly who was responsible, transforming the hunt into a public spectacle. This photo shows the headquarters of the San Francisco Chronicle. In August 1969, thick envelopes arrived here and at 2 other newsrooms, containing handwritten letters that provided proof only the killer could know. Each letter contained 1/3 of a 408-symbol cryptogram. The sender issued an ultimatum. The papers had to publish his code on the front page immediately, or he would spend the weekend hunting and killing random people in the night. The author soon provided his own moniker, the Zodiac, and signed his letters with a circle intersected by a crosshair. This symbol would become the calling card for all his future communications. This diagram shows the decryption of that first cipher by a pair of amateur codebreakers. The message revealed a deeply disturbed motive. The Zodiac claimed he was killing to collect slaves who would serve him in his version of the afterlife. The Zodiac was now the architect of an interactive game of terror. He was using the media to speak directly to the citizens he was threatening, forcing the entire state to participate in his narrative. In September 1969, the violence moved into broad daylight. This photo shows the sunlit waters of Lake Berryessa, where 2 college students were picnicking when they noticed a man watching them from behind a tree. The man approached wearing a hand-stitched executioner's hood made of black cloth with his crosshair symbol sewn across the chest. He tied the couple up before stabbing them both multiple times. This photo of a vintage yellow cab establishes the urban setting for the next attack. 2 weeks later, the killer moved into the heart of San Francisco, hailing a taxi driven by Paul Stein and shooting him in the head in a residential neighborhood. By shifting between rural lovers' lanes to public parks and a major city center, the killer proved that no specific location or time of day offered protection from his attacks. To prove he was responsible for the San Francisco murder, the Zodiac mailed a bloody piece of Paul Stein's shirt to the press. It was indisputable evidence that the man talking to the newspapers was the man pulling the trigger. This photo of a school bus represents the Zodiac's terrifying next target. He threatened to shoot out the tires of a bus and pick off the children as they ran out. Paranoia gripped the city. Armed guards were placed on transport routes, and parents were terrified to let their children walk to school. This nighttime photo captures a public that was suddenly, painfully aware of its own vulnerability. The Zodiac had achieved a complete psychological siege. He successfully scaled his violence from individual victims to the entire population of California. This photo shows a detective's office, similar to the ones used during an investigation that was staggering in its complexity. Detectives were buried under thousands of false leads, filling cabinets with interviews that went nowhere. Investigators possessed composite sketches, descriptions from survivors, and even bloody fingerprints left at the final crime scene. But despite the volume of physical evidence, the pieces never came together to identify a single person. This photo shows Arthur Lee Allen, the most scrutinized suspect in the case. He owned the same brand of watch and shoes used by the killer, yet his DNA and fingerprints never matched the samples pulled from the letters. The sheer volume of clues was the primary obstacle. With thousands of fragmented pieces of evidence pointing in different directions, a definitive conclusion became impossible. After claiming 37 victims in 1974, the Zodiac vanished. His most complex code, the Z340 cipher, remained unsolved for 51 years until a team of private citizens finally broke it in 2020. This data visualization shows how the cipher characters were eventually translated. The decoded message offered no names, only a final boast from the grave, with the killer claiming he wasn't afraid of death because it would only send him to his paradise sooner. The Zodiac's true identity remains unknown, but his legacy is clear. He successfully weaponized the media and our own morbid curiosity to ensure his story never truly reached a conclusion.